Welcome to the Reprofiles, where infertility meets injustice and nothing is off limits.
We're two nurses. We're certified reproductive health advocates, and we're here to tell you everything they didn't.
From the broken systems to the heartbreak left behind, we're here to connect the facts, the policies, and the pain.
Because silence isn't safety, and we're done being quiet.
This is the Reprofiles.
Infertility, injustice, and all things nobody warned you about.
Hello, hello. It is the time again for another episode of the Reprofiles, the podcast where infertility meets injustice, and the punchline is typically Congress. I'm Elizabeth, your resident infertility nurse, patient advocate, and candidate for Congress in Arizona's 5th district, and the person who keeps discovering new ways American policy makes absolutely zero sense.
Yeah, and I'm Anne-Marie, your friendly anthropologist / reproductive health chaos correspondent. And I'm totally all of that. If it's weird, problematic, clinically inaccurate, or somehow involves lawmakers making decisions they shouldn't be anywhere near, I'm here to explain it.
If you all cannot tell, we're a slight bit wound up, friends, because today's episode has everything. IVF military coverage drama, lawmakers pretending fertilize eggs, pay taxes, men wagering on the WNBA using menstrual cycle predictions. Are we in a CGI cartoon fetus that needs to be fact-checked by a middle schooler?
Yeah, so once again, it's a completely normal week in reproductive medicine.
Goodness. Grab your coffee, get your heating pad, and let's get into it.
All right. So, first up, we're going to talk about IVF for military families. Or should I say IVF for military families until it was mysteriously yanked out of the National Defense Authorization Act.
And the villain removing it wasn't even hiding. Representative Mike Johnson, the speaker himself, slipped IVF coverage right out of that bill like he was trying to take the last donut from a box without anyone noticing. Not going to lie. Because at the end of the day, we both know this has received widespread bipartisan support in other Congresses, and it is upon nothing more than ideological principles that he did his little donut move on that piece of the NDAA.
Yeah. But you know what he wasn't counting on, Elizabeth?
Exactly.
He wasn't counting on the fact that the infertility community has group chats and we operate faster than NORAD.
My gosh, faster than NORAD tracking Santa, my friends, because we mobilized like we were launching the fertility police force, you guys. Calls, emails, direct messages. I would wake up the couple days ago with my coffee, and the first thing I would do was call Speaker Johnson's office and just actually, surprisingly, Anne-Marie, of all the lawmakers I called, his office was the only one that answered. And so I got to, make this poor legislative aide just listen to me rant about, So all the calls, all the email, the DMs, the petitions, the hashtags, right? People wrote paragraphs and paragraphs. I mean, it's serious when fertility patients write more than the length of their STEM diary. So we mobilized. And yet,
absolutely. They probably have your picture on their wall of
likely.
Representative Johnson's office, like, this lady again. My God, stop calling.
They probably have like a little thing where they stick a tick mark up there every time. My God, she called again.
It's Elizabeth Lee calling again. Here we go. They might have like a poll. Like they might be like, how many times is she going to call today? Or is she going to call today? They probably have that on the wall.
There could be some menstrual cycle tracking, betting even going on. We digress.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but even after all of these stories and patients told their stories, they were sharing stories online on social media and articles, newspapers, everything. And yet, even after all of that, it was still stripped out.
And that's exhausting, right? And having spoken to members of the military, the military family building community, they're devastated. They are so let down. They're so exhausted. And, the part that really cooks my ovaries, which is fine because I'm perimenopausal, so the faster the better. But members of Congress already have IVF coverage, Anne-Marie. So Mike Johnson can walk into a fertility clinic in Bossier City, Louisiana, the district he represents, and show his member of Congress badge, and he's solid, right? But meanwhile, active duty service members, military families that are at the behest of the military at all times, pick up and move, do whatever the military needs you to do. These folks are paying thousands and thousands of dollars for the same treatment. And it's unacceptable. These are the folks that keep and preserve our freedom, that fight for our freedom, and this is how we repay them.
Yeah, yeah. Good for me, not for thee, I guess is the phrase of the week? Question mark?
Is it the phrase of the decade? I don't know. Well, and
Yeah, yeah.
listen, as somebody running for Congress, I keep saying this very thing that if our service members don't have IVF coverage, then no member of Congress should either. In fact,
Word.
it is my view that veterans and the military are deserving of every single best practice, best healthcare. Yeah, and Anne Marie, as somebody who's running for Congress, I keep saying this thing. If our service members don't have IVF coverage, I know our military deserves better. And our military families right now are devastated once again.
Absolutely. Like I it's like a loss for words exactly what happened. But if I may, I would like to share a quote from Senator Duckworth that she said in
Please
response
do,
to this.
my girl, my hero.
Yeah, so this is from Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. So this is what she said, quote, Trump claimed on the campaign trail that he'd make IVF free for all Americans, creepily declaring himself the father of IVF. Well, he proved he's a deadbeat dad by not only failing to make IVF free for anyone, but standing by as Speaker Johnson undermined one of his key campaign promises and stripped coverage from service members behind closed doors that both the House and the Senate approved. This was approved by both the Senate and the House.
Right.
Just want to make that very clear. It has been passed by both of them. And then she added, shame on them.
Same. Yes, I actually, Senator Duckworth, cheers, because he is the deadbeat dad of IVF. How many times is he going to take people on a roller coaster, claiming one thing, saying one thing, and then doing another, right? We've heard, only have we heard things about IVF this year. We've not seen anything effectively change, right? We've not seen it yet. And you and I both desperately want that to come because we know our patients are drowning under the costs of their meds and of their cycles. And we need to bring the costs down. But to
Yeah,
my
no,
point,
it's been promises, but no action. And, the last news that came out about IVF that from this administration was on November 16th, and
yep,
it has been crickets since then.
that's right. And that was similar to the initial EO that came out at the top of this administration in January that said there were going to be 90 days and then there would be, recommendations, recall if you will, that those recommendations, the 90th day was on Resolve's Federal Advocacy Day. And so we fast forward into the late summer and the fall, and we hear all of this talk about IVF meds being cheaper and whatnot. And at the end of the day, nothing has changed.
Yeah, we're still waiting and still waiting. But I think this right here, I was really hopeful for because it passed through, and I was like, okay, well at least service members are going to be able to use TRICARE for their fertility treatments. I was very excited about this, and I feel like this is just a slap in the face to military families or people who are trying to start and expand their families. This is literally a slap in the face. These people, as you had mentioned earlier, move when we tell them to move. They move every 3 years. They pick up their stuff and they move to a whole different city, state, across the country. And this is the thanks they're getting is this. So
Yeah.
Elizabeth, you've been on the campaign trail, so you know how you've been talking about this, right?
Everywhere, everywhere. I mean, I share the story similar to what you just brought up about military families who are calling clinics from a new duty station, and they find out that the wait list is 6 months long. This is what I talked to the poor gentleman on the other side of Mike Johnson's phone the other day about. I said, "I want you to picture for a moment with me that you and your partner are military and you're stationed somewhere and you've been trying to have a child for a couple of years. You finally are brave enough to go seek help. You get that referred to a fertility clinic. You find out that the wait is 6 months long. You wait for 6 months. You finally get in, you hear what you don't want to hear, which is that, you're going to need some help conceiving. Then you find out the price tag. So all of these things happen. And then next thing you know, ring a ling, time to move, right? Which means
Mhm.
pick up and move everything and all over again. I mean, this is basic family building. Like they should have support. I mean, I'm running because we need people in Congress who understand our healthcare from the inside. And to have somebody fighting to ensure we treat our military families with some dignity.
Yeah. Yeah. We should replace every motivational poster in the Pentagon with "Make it make sense." You know? But I mean, also in addition to just talking about this bill and having fertility, there are some military families that do have access to care for coverage. However, it is very difficult to, I guess, prove that their infertility came because of active duty, an injury of some sort. So it's very difficult. So not many people actually are able to utilize that. So I just want to there is a provision that, they can, but it's very hard to get.
No, it's extremely difficult to prove because it's not only just that you were injured, which again is insane, that you should have to be
Mhm.
injured, but it isn't even just that. Your fertility has to have been injured effectively. So if you suffer
Mhm.
some, chemical exposure or some physical trauma of some kind or something like that, that ultimately you can prove is responsible for your infertility, but otherwise it doesn't matter. And again, we've pulled these folks into the military during family building years. Like
Mhm.
again, make it.
Make it make sense. So, it just happened a few days ago. Where do we go from here? It's like we did all this rallying, we reposted stuff, posted stuff, called people. What do you think? Where else can we go? What are your thoughts? Like where do we just keep on keeping on, or is there
I think
something that we could do?
Well, I think we collectively have so much more power than certainly those in power would like us to believe, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think defeats like this one, the hope from the other side is that you will quit. Like you lost, okay, it's over. But that's the last
Mhm.
thing we should be doing right now. What people can do is to continue to be super loud and to make noise on this, to tell their stories. Stories are the currency that it seems to be maybe one of the very few currencies that hits for the other side. So let's use it. Let's tell stories. So call your senator's office or your rep's office and tell them why Mike Johnson's decision well, and let's back up for a second too, right? Because Mike Johnson just gets to unilaterally reappropriate money that was already, as you mentioned, approved by both the House and the Senate with really positive margins. And we gets to effectively unilaterally strip that provision out of the National Defense Authorization Act. I mean, that should concern every politician. No matter what side of the aisle that you sit on. If a Speaker of the House can unilaterally reappropriate funds or just, with the strike of a wand, make these changes, that is very dangerous to our democracy. So that's another thing that I think we have to continue to do, even outside of just like the reproductive health things that you and I talk about on this channel. But beyond that, about all of it, we have to be very vocal. We have to show up at even the little protests and even the small events to help because those are the moments in time I think where it starts to shift, but it's this effort and we're trying to hit, reach this mass effect of 3.5 percent of the population and this last No King's Day we got close, but all of that to say I think what people need to do is they've got to get involved in something at their so if you're
Mhm.
listening and you think this is outrageous, find your closest link between you and the speaker, whether if you're an electrician, right? Go talk to your
Mhm.
electrician friends down at the union hall and say, "Hey, anybody I mean, I know this is not easy stuff, but like, hey, has anybody ever had like, you know, issues with the VA or issues with fertility or whatever the case may be, but collecting stories and then helping to
Mhm.
educate people on this too. Because even military families and veterans who are retired care about this. I'm thinking about a gentleman that lives here in
Mhm.
my district in Arizona who his daughter had to use IVF, and he was in the military and so was his daughter's spouse. So this matters to so many folks beyond just our community where we hear it the loudest because it's what we do. But
Mhm.
I think anybody who cares about this, who cares about our military, and who cares again about the rule of law, that one
Mhm.
does not get to unilaterally make some kind of call like this. So that's my very
Yeah.
long-winded advice on what to do, is to find something and just do it and be consistent in it and stick with it because they're hearing. I mean, much of what we're seeing is some plans have been thwarted and have been rethought once there was a lot
Mhm.
of opposition and resistance to it. So this is just the beginning of this fight in my mind.
Yeah. I've read it. There are on both sides of the aisle, people are calling this out. Obviously, many of the Democrats, yes, but there are Republicans out there going, "That's a shame that this was, that they were not expecting that." It was, I think I read something. People were like, "Oh, that's unfortunate." Well, it's so unfortunate. Why don't you do something about it? But like, yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, what the average person can do is, you know, get on their social media and just share something. You want to share this podcast, you can do that. But you can share, other people's stories or other organizations, their postings, and you don't have to comment on it. You can just repost it. And you know what? People in your social media circle are going to look at that and maybe it'll spark something in them as well.
No,
You know.
absolutely. At the end of the day, the more we can get information out, because the other thing that I've noticed, especially now just talking with so many people, is that information is a bit scarce, which is kind of crazy because it's everywhere and misinformation is certainly everywhere. Folks have turned off their sources of information because it's too
Mhm.
traumatic to follow
Yes.
along. Even people who
Mhm.
care deeply are traumatized by this. And again, on
Ye
both sides, the rhetoric and the violence and just the lies,
The
the half
name calling.
truths.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's behavior. It's behavior we would not tolerate from our school children, right? Like, and I
Correct.
mean, we've got a little bit on a tangent, but I do want to make sure that we say that as of right now, we still have, the last announcement on IVF was going on a month ago, and we've got
Mhm.
basically, press releases, and I mean, ultimately, I've seen more follow through from a toddler promising they weren't going to throw their snack on the floor. I mean, this is where we're at with this group. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah,
astonished.
totally, totally. So keep on keeping on, people. Keep sharing stories. Keep doing that. We will continue. Obviously, we're your advocates, and we want to share and spread the word and tell people and educate people. So, in other news that I've come across recently, now this is kind of a little bit older a story, but it has the factor for me. So this is the part of the show that I'm gonna say that we collectively just say, "Why?"
Yeah, but why? Why would you do that? Why? Why? Yes, why is always the right question.
Yeah,
Or
so
or
okay, let me
perhaps better
yeah.
yet, slightly off script here, but perhaps better yet is what or who taught you that that was a good choice to make? Or where did you learn to act like that, right? So, yes, I know this is your hot button thing for the week, but let's stack.
It's my hot it's a hot button, but it's an ew button for sure. Okay, let me just lay it out for you. So, menfolk, they're placing wagers like betting lines and all of that stuff, right?
Wait,
But
like
we're not talking about
actual
bets
money?
on like games and points and touchdowns and things like that. No, no, no. We're talking about betting on based on WNBA players' menstrual cycles. It's kind of like fantasy football, but with uterine linings. Sorry, you're very quiet. So I'm like, are you shocked?
My face, for those of you who do not watch but only listen to this, my face was not doing a great job hiding what it was thinking. You know, I have spent years and many, many frustrating sessions trying to explain the menstrual cycle to patients, to med students and residents, to the occasional coworker who missed sixth grade science class. But this is this is different. Never did I think we'd have to explain it to gamblers. And wait, real
Okay,
money?
so
Are
there's
they
this
like real money or just like play money?
okay. Okay, it's not about, like the bets aren't like, "Oh, she's on her period." The bets
Right,
are
right, right,
gonna
right.
be like, like, on
Well, who they think's
yeah,
gonna win?
like, how many points they're gonna score or assists and things like that, or is the team gonna win kind of thing. Like, there's a
Wow.
guy, okay, there's a guy that claims that he correctly predicted 11 out of 16 menstruation-related performance outcomes.
That's not an analysis. That's like vibes with a spreadsheet, bro. Like,
Okay. Let's go into a little bit more. Okay, so he says, like, he follows these women in the WNBA, and if a player has decreased aerobic capacity or, like, is tired, out of breath, things like that, and misses baskets, she might be in the late luteal phase. Elizabeth, do you want to tell everybody what late luteal phase
well,
is?
that's like, right before you start your next period where you're kind of getting a little
Mm-hmm.
tired and cranky and those sorts of things. But,
Mm-hmm.
she might be tired because she's a professional athlete playing professional basketball professionally against other professionals. Perhaps that is why she's tired.
Is that your professional opinion?
It is, in fact. Although, since you brought that up and we are on the topic of news, neither you nor I are any longer considered professionals. So this is my right?
Non-professional
This is
opinion.
my non-professional opinion. Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah. So
nurses,
that's news. Yeah.
yeah, that's news.
Nurses no longer.
Okay, wait,
Yeah,
wait,
you're
we
gonna
have
have to
to
pay all those
tell the story
student
though.
loans.
What if someone listening doesn't know the
Okay,
story? Tell them, get them up to date.
okay. So there are certain professions that have professional with them, like doctors and dentists and things like that. And there used to be a professional title for nurses and nurse practitioners and CRNAs and architects and teachers and things like that.
Social
So,
workers, speech language pathologists, physical therapists, yeah,
yeah,
therapists.
a lot of healthcare and architects for
And
some reason. I
and a
don't
lot of
understand
healthcare
how they
jobs
got
that are
added in.
traditionally held by women.
Yes, yeah. And so basically they reclassified them not as professional, and apparently this goes for being able to obtain certain amount of student loans, so they don't have the same amounts of student loans that they're eligible for.
Yeah. And listen,
And these are federal, not private. Obviously, private, you can just borrow $1 million. So therefore, the big hubbub was nurses are no longer professionals. So,
yes,
we can start acting
we
non-professionally.
can
So
start
I'm
acting
cool with
non-professional now. That's exciting.
yeah, right? I can tell some patients some things.
I'll tell them all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so just so we don't get too far
Okay.
off.
Back to basketball. Back
Yes,
to basketball.
yes.
Okay. So, all right. So
You
he
were
he
telling me
studies these
that he
players.
has a study that he references, right?
Yeah, so he studies them. There is a study that he follows, but yeah, no, he studies the players and he like tracks their cycle by how their performance was done. So he references the study about like performance drops apparently. So there's a study out there that it shows like how athletes, how their performance can change throughout their menstrual cycle.
Well,
It's out there.
for the record, though, that says perceived performance changes, not objective performance, meaning athletes feel more tired or crampy, right? It doesn't say you can build a DraftKings empire off of it.
Correct. Yeah. And he also doesn't talk to the players. He doesn't talk to anybody about their cycle. And here's another thing that who who knows if these people are on birth control of some sorts.
I have
I so many things.
so many
I
questions.
just
So he doesn't this is all conjecture? He doesn't actually know they're on their cycles, or is he, like, sneaking into the
no.
ladies' bathroom after practice? taken in, like, what the heck? I cannot, okay, so many
Yeah.
questions.
No,
I mean
he's not checking to see who's buying the Tampax and the
I am gonna say,
and the
if I'm gonna
pad.
be honest though, if a stranger asked me what day of my cycle I was on so he could place a bet, I would probably very suddenly discover some not so kind tendencies. So perhaps it's better if he just guesses, but that is astonishing.
I thought that was a very weird story that I
Yes.
found. But then I don't know if you know this, Elizabeth, but here's another thing, and it's very disturbing how, men can feel that they can make these type of things at women's athletics in general. But I don't know if you know this, but there are men that are going to women's games and throwing dildos on the court.
Yes.
I don't know. They think it's funny. I don't know.
Like
It's not funny.
that I okay. So proves the bar for public behavior is at subterranean levels at this point, I guess. And do we really need to lower it by adding menstrual gambling, like menstrual cycle gambling? I think not. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's next level cray cray. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's very insulting and,
There is.
it's just all kinds of ick, it's all kinds of ew,
Yeah.
and every day it's like we inch closer to the Handmaid's Tale, but with worse fashion.
And no insurance coverage.
That goes without saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
because
Are you kidding me? Yeah. All right. So now that that's over with,
I was
menstrual
like, "I'm
cycles
gonna
and
do that myself."
dildos and women, yeah, we've done all that. Let's kind of do like a little things in the states that have been out in the news recently. So we're gonna go to the Midwest of the country, Ohio. So
That's my home. That's my home.
Ohio lawmakers want to require fifth graders through 12th graders, and they would watch it every single year, by the way, to watch this film called Baby Olivia. Now, I've heard of it just because I live in Florida and this is something that would go on down here. But watch Baby Olivia. It's made by a company called Live Action. It's a video about fetal development.
Which is cute except for the part where it's medically inaccurate. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, treats it treats gestational age like it starts at conception instead of starting at the last menstrual period, which is like a super basic thing. Like you spend
Mhm.
12 seconds in women's healthcare reproductive medicine, you know that. It implies fetuses can survive at 20 weeks extrauterine, which they absolutely cannot. And the crazy part is the kids figured out it was wrong faster than the legislators did.
Yeah. Well, that was thanks to the North Dakota and Fargo, North Dakota kids. They are the ones that were like, yeah, because North Dakota also showed this video and they were like, this is wrong. And then Fargo Public Schools decided, okay, yeah, you're right. It's not right. So they took it out. So maybe Ohio will catch up. I don't know.
Yes.
So, good for them. Good for middle schoolers and their like attitudey. Actually, no. And that just makes me really happy that we have middle schoolers that are going to show their attitude and
Well, for
fight
good,
for
right? Well, but
Yeah.
use their attitude for good and not for
Yeah.
evil and making their parents go insane. I mean, listen, nothing gives me more hope than a 13-year-old that's just loudly and proudly fact checking propaganda. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm proud of our kids who do have a good sense of like, "Meh, but really, no, that's not how it works." So good for them.
Yeah. There's hope for the future. I feel like the kids are all right. All right, maybe we got some good ones coming down the line. That's good. So moving over into the Southeast, we have South Carolina, the Palmetto State. Very lovely, low country, very good low country boils. Have you ever had one of those?
I
It's
have
really good.
not. I haven't.
Anyway, so they had a bill. I'm going to say had because that's the good word here. They had a bill that was going to allow judges to sentence women who got abortions to decades in prison. Like not a couple of days. I didn't say days. I said decades for
That's
having an abortion.
so, like, as in the amount of time it takes off to pay your IVF debt.
Yeah, yeah. Um, exactly. And not only that, but it would have criminalized anybody that helped them. And not only that, but it was going to ban like birth control, specifically IUDs, right? Because IUDs prevent implantation. So essentially IUDs would not be able to be utilized in South Carolina.
Anne Marie, people have got to understand here. It makes me
Mm.
crazy how many people say that, this idea of banning contraception is hypothetical. It's not. State
Mhm.
lawmakers all across this country are trying, right? We've talked about this before on the show that the American government spent $200,000 of taxpayer money to destroy $10 million worth of birth control. Again, for ideological reasons. And I'll say it again, they're obviously coming for IVF too. If Speaker Mike Johnson can unilaterally decide that our military don't deserve that access, then don't tell me that there's not these ideological underpinnings and like sort of an undertow of sorts that's coming for these things. Again, actions speak louder than words. We've just not seen a lot of action. But, this bill would have strictly this one you're talking about in South Carolina, not only would it have put you in jail for decades, which just is I don't have any words for it, but it would have limited your access to birth control, right? And as you mentioned, though, good news is that it failed.
Yes. It did. And I have a friend who lives in South Carolina. She's an embryologist, and she was just like, what am I supposed to do if this bill gets through? This is her livelihood. This is her passion. She is there to help people create families, and she was praying over this bill not being passed because literally would have upended her entire life. And it failed barely. But the fact is that anybody that is introducing these type of bills, it's very chilling to me because and I'm gonna get a little here I go again, but
Girl,
when people are when it's a different political party in charge, the claim is always you're gonna take our guns away, you're going to take our guns away, you're going to take our guns away. That hasn't happened. And we've had many Democratic administrations, but you're gonna take our birth control away, you're gonna take our IVF away, you're gonna take our birth control away, you're gonna take our IVF away. Yeah, that's happening.
well, and it's doubly cruel because first you take away birth control, then you take away abortion.
Mhm.
That's the chilling part, right? So you give
Mhm.
no way to prevent it essentially, and then criminalize if it happens. And listen, I've always been really very clear on this. People can be personally anti-abortion for themselves. And as a nurse, and I know you share this feeling with me, we have an obligation to support our patients' desires to whatever they may be. So if a patient walks in
Mhm.
and they say, I am anti-abortion, we say, let's not, we'll make sure we don't have an abortion then, right? I'm anti-IVF.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do IUIs, like fine. But lawmak again, people can be personally against it, but lawmakers should not be imposing this on everyone else, especially not lawmakers. Need leaders who are going to protect freedom, true freedom. I mean, and this group is always yelling about freedom, and it's slightly ironic because it's like freedom for whom? Because right now it looks to me as if my daughter has less rights than I did. So where's the freedom there, right? And this is something I talk a lot about as a congressional candidate. Right? Reproductive health care should never be weaponized against people. And that's what we're seeing over and over again play out across state legislatures and play out across things like Project 2025. And again, we see, it's smoke screen, smoke and mirrors, whatever. We say one thing, but then, next thing you know, we're pulling IVF away from our military.
Mhm. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. If you don't want to, then don't do it, and we will support you for that. But if you do or you need, then we are going to be there for you, and we're going to help you. So again, it's we need to get politics out of the doctor's office, out of the exam rooms. These are not decisions for you to make. These are decisions between a patient and their physician. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Make it make sense, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, we've seen the IVF hypocrisy, right? This menstrual gambling thing, CGI'd fetuses, felony IUD bans. I mean, America is really going all out on crazy right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's a bit much. It's a bit much, but we're gonna keep breaking it down and we'll keep speaking up and spotlighting, the hypocrisy. That matters. That spotlighting it and showing people, do you see this is what's happening? Fighting for access, to care. That matters. Advocating loudly, consistently, unapologetically, that all matters. That's what we're here for. That's what we're bringing to you, dear listeners, and we hope
Trying to
that,
empower
we
you all
can.
to do the same, right?
Yeah.
Like, what can we do? What should we be doing? What's next? What's
Mhm,
next? Raise the volume and keep on going, and be brave enough to speak out on these things, right? Because our hope is that we inspire you to do that, that we inspire you to say, you know what, like, let me go call my lawmakers. I've never done this before, but I'm going to give it a try. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, we are going to keep knocking at the door until we get the right, the right person to come out and have the conversation. I think the more we can spread truth and facts and data and try to do our best to tamp down the rhetoric and the emotion. And I know we on this show, we get amped up, we get emotional, we get, understand that's because this is what we do for a living. But at the
mhm,
same time, just recognizing that we're only ever going to make progress together if we come together. If we
mhm.
continue to war at each other, um, we're going to continue to see the dysfunction sort of devolve. So, yep, advocate loud, advocate proud, be consistent in your advocacy. And, if you liked our episode, leave us a review, share it with a friend, maybe send this to someone who thinks they understand reproductive health because they watched one Facebook reel about it. Um,
Yeah, so keep talking about it, keep sharing. We'll be here for you every week and send us, what you want to talk about. What are topics that you'd like to hear about and talk more about because, we can talk all day if you want.
and
I
if
can
we
talk all
want
day if you want.
to, but we didn't share this yet, but we will have a guest coming up. A couple of guests actually
Yeah,
coming up in upcoming
yeah.
episodes. We're hoping to bring you a guest in December and a guest again in January. Yeah, but until then, enjoy the week with your families. Be safe, and we'll see you on the next episode.